Recently, R&K Distributing came out with their new line of polyester thread. It's called the R&K Micro Thread, and we're very excited about that, and we've actually worked on the software to get it to work more fluidly with 60 weight thread, which is what is used in their micro thread. Standard thread is 40 weight, and as you may or may not know, the size of the thread, the higher the number goes, the thinner it is. So a standard thread is 40 weight. That's what most people use on their embroidery designs. And the micro thread, which is a thinner thread, is a 60 weight. And so I want to show you what we have done inside the software to make it easier to work with this micro thread, because there's some things that we need to keep in mind. First off is the micro thread is thinner. So because it's thinner, the fabric will show through the thread unless we change the density. So we really have to be careful with density with micro threads. Now, the advantage of using a micro thread, there's a couple advantages to it. First of all, it lets you work with designs that are a lot smaller and more detailed, and because it's thinner, it's going to show that quality better at smaller sizes. So I'll show you an example right here. I have a little design open that was sewn out, and here is a design. It's the same design, no modifications done to the design. The one on the left is using a standard 40 weight thread. The one on the right is using a 60 weight micro thread. And you can see right away that when you just start examining a few things, just how much more detail you're able to achieve and see with using the micro 60 weight thread. Take a look right here at this little flower on the left hand side, and then go ahead and come over here and look at the one on the right hand side using the 60 weight. You can see how the holes close up on the 40 weight, but yet they remain open on the 60 weight. A couple other areas in this design that really kind of highlight it is, if you look at these two butterflies, you can see that the one on the left right here is kind of all blobbed up. You can't really see the detail in it, and you can see a little bit of the detail in the larger butterfly, but still it's not great. If you come over here to the example using 60 weight, you can see how you can now see detail on the smaller butterfly, and then you can see better detail on the butterfly on the right. Another area that really stood out to me was this butterfly right here in this shoe design. You can see how you can see the butterfly pretty easily when you go and you look in this area. But if you come over to the one in the 40 weight, the example of the 40 weight thread, you can see how it kind of gets blobbed up and you can't really see the detail. It's harder to spot the butterfly. And then also, if you look at the shoe right here in this area, you see this little flower right here. You can see that it's very hard to see, but if you come over to the example using the 60 weight, you can see how that flower just opens up. Those are just a couple areas. So when you're working with a design, especially like a red work design, and that's kind of smaller, that has a lot of detail in it, that is a perfect candidate for using the 60 weight thread. But if it's again, if it's a detailed design that has a lot of lines that are close together. Also, using this thread works great with small lettering, like minute lettering, and also just really small satin stitch designs. And the other advantage of using, the 60 weight thread, one thing you have to do is you have to use a smaller needle. So you'll use a size 8 or 9 needle, and as opposed to like a 11 that you would use at the 40 weight. The size 8 and 9, they're smaller needles, and so when they penetrate the fabric, they create a smaller hole. So when you're working on those really detailed designs and really small satin stitches, and you're working with a more delicate fabric, you will notice a considerable difference in how much cleaner the design looks using the 60 weight thread. And a lot of it has to do with the needle size and making a smaller hole into the fabric, it won't look as choppy around the edges. So it is definitely, 60 weight thread is something that has been used for years in the commercial industry, especially to achieve small detail in a design. And so let's take a look at this tree design that I have open right here, and we'll just take a quick look at it. I want to show you what densities are used. Like on the satin stitch area, you can see that the density of it is a 0.5, which is a standard satin density. We'll go over here to this fill stitch. We'll click on it. You can see that it's using a 0.5 density as well, which is standard for 40 weight thread. Now, if we were going to sew this out onto anything, a garment or a towel or anything like that, and we used the micro thread, you would see a lot of fabric through the design because that thread is a lot thinner. So one of the things we have to do is we have to make sure that the density is increased a little bit, and don't let this throw you off because the stitch count will be higher, but you're going to have more stitches in the design because the thread does not cover as well as a 40 weight thread. So don't let that throw you off. It's perfectly normal and okay to have a higher stitch count in the design when you're using a micro thread. So let's go down here to our color chart. You can see that right now we're using this color number 9, which is a Floriani 233 Irish green. What we want to do is we want to change this to a micro thread. So we're going to go up to our drop down list. We're going to left click and we're going to find where it says R&K micro thread. And we'll click on that. And you can see that there's 24 colors here. And you can see that we do have a 2233 Irish green in here. And so we're going to go ahead and select this micro thread and hit OK. Okay, so what we've just done is we've just changed the color of this design, and you can see over here in the sequence view to a R&K micro thread. And there's you definitely want to do this when you're working with a design, because this lets the software know that you are going to be using a 60 weight thread, because this thread chart was created and it was stated in there that this is a 60 weight thread. So this makes a big difference when we do something like run the design through Save to Sew. What we've been able to accomplish is through Save to Sew, and we'll just go ahead and we'll bring up Save to Sew feature. Let's say that we're going to sew this out onto, let's just go to down here to a knit t-shirt. And I didn't digitize this design, so I'm going to choose I didn't digitize it. And it's just a medium design. I'm going to hit next. I'm going to allow it to apply new density, new underlay, and new compensation values. I'm going to hit apply and OK. I'm going to hit next. Now it's going to tell me what type of stabilizer to use. If you're familiar with Save to Sew, you know this right here. And we'll hit finish. And then I'm not going to save it right now, so I'm going to hit cancel. But you can see right away that the design looks a little bit different. And let's go ahead and select this object right here that we did before, and let's take a look. Now the density is at 0.33, whereas before it was 0.5. Let's take a look at this one, and this one is density's down to 0.3. So you can see how, because we used a micro thread, the software knew to go in there and change the density a little bit more because it's working with a micro thread. Let's go ahead and take a look. We do have our Save to Sew notes up here. Let me go ahead and look. Let's look up at top here. We have 13,264 stitches, and if I hit undo, we have 7,882. So you can see that the number of stitches definitely changed. It has a higher number because we're using a micro thread throughout it all. And so that is how the micro thread works and how we have it in the software. It is very, very powerful that we are able to incorporate Save to Sew into it to recognize the thread and automatically make adjustments for it. And if you've used the micro thread and you've been able to experience the advantages of it, you'll love it. If you haven't ever tried 60 weight thread, I definitely encourage you to do so, because it's amazing what results you are able to get with detailed designs. And make sure that you run a design through Save to Sew so that it can adjust for that 60 weight thread. But remember, you do need to change your thread colors accordingly. So if you wanted just one section like this to be a 40 weight thread, you would keep that at 40. You just change what you want to a 60 weight thread color. And so I hope that this helps, and I hope that you utilize these capabilities inside the software when you're playing around with the 60 weight thread.